Hi.
Sir, how are you?
How you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. Doing good. Doing good.
Yes, sir. Hey, it's an extreme honor to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you
Good to be with
taking
you.
the
Good to be
time
with
out
you.
to come on my small little
That's
humble
right.
platform.
Well, I hope we can do it. We'll get you. We're going to hit you with the
Yeah.
22-inch rims. I hope we can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We are already live for all those. Welcome to the No Anonymity Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy. Today we have a very, very special guest. I reached out to this young man and he reached right back to me. I reached out to a lot of people and they don't reach back for some reason. I guess it's not big enough.
I know the thing. I know.
Yeah. But you reached right back to me. And I really appreciate that. Michael Schratt, am I saying your last name correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
He's a pilot, military aerospace historian, as well as an author. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you.
Yes, sir. This is Did you get the picture that I showed you, that emailed you, and
I'll have to
I told you what I
review it
saw?
again. I'll have to review it again.
Okay. This is a very interesting topic. I've always been interested in this type of things that's going on when people see. I don't think everyone doesn't just make things up.
Right. Right.
Is that me or you? I think that's me buzzing.
I am going to plug in my other mic here so that hopefully you can still hear me.
Yeah, I hear you now. I hear you good.
You hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear you good. But it's just an interesting topic. If you want to go over your resume with the audience, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, sure. My name is Michael Schratt. I'm a private pilot and military aerospace historian. The primary focus of my research deals with classified aircraft within the military industrial complex. I'm a concerned taxpayer. Like many of you, I want to know where my tax dollars are disappearing to. In fact, it's our duty, it's our obligation to question authority. It's part of who we are as Americans. We want to question authority. And when you really look at it and you break it down, the Air Force is not the owner of the Air Force bases or the hangars or the aircraft or the facility. They are nothing more than temporary custodians of those assets. We are the owners. We are the taxpayers. So we have every right to question authority. Now that trickles down to what we want to talk about tonight, the UFO crash retrievals. We want to look at the firsthand military witness accounts of people who held the bodies, who work with the debris, who work with the hardware, who loaded up craft onto 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy trucks and shipped them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's what I want to talk about tonight.
Wow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we get into it, let me ask you a question. Why do you think, and you're right about us, paying taxes we should know. Why do you think is it really, I'll play devil advocate for a second. Is it really in our best interest to be kept in the dark?
Well, there are some who say that there's a terrible truth behind all of this and that we just can't handle it. And there will be outcry and riots in the streets and the public can't handle it. Maybe there's a percentage of that's true. There possibly is a percentage of that's true. However, I don't think that's true in the entire case because there has been a slow drip of disclosure. There's been a conditioning process over the last 80 years. It's obviously this is by design. It's been seen in multiple movies, in print, in TV, in radio, in podcasts. They've been blitzing this thing for 80 years. And the giggle factor, as you can see, it's slowly dropping down. The giggle factor has not been eliminated, but it's certainly lessened to this point. So at this point, I just don't know if the government will ever come clean with this. And you can see that we've already had 80 years of this disclosure campaign. We've already tried the democratic process for this, and you see where it's led us. We still don't know what's going on after 80 years. And what they're trying to do, it's very clear. They're trying to run out the clock, kick the can down the road, and they're waiting for all of the legacy crash retrieval witnesses to die off. And they're almost there because there's not one 509th Bomb Group member from Roswell Army Airfield left anymore. They're all gone. So
Right.
it's cover up complete in the eyes of the United States government. And so now what they're doing is they're just trying to wait out the game for all the remaining crash retrieval witnesses to die away, and then they will have this thing wrapped up. But we're not going to let them get away with this because we still have some witnesses left, and that's why it's incumbent upon us to track down these legacy witnesses, get to their bosses, so that we can get to the hardware and the craft and have open congressional hearings as a united group of firsthand military witnesses. We don't need any lone wolves. We want a united coalition of like 24 military firsthand witnesses that actually have dealt with the hardware that could get into these facilities where they keep these assets. That's what we need. Anything less than that, and we are going to be spinning our wheels, and we're going to be here another 80 years and still not know what's going on. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're at right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I heard there's billions and trillions of dollars that's unaccounted for within the government.
Absolutely. Now, Timothy Good wrote a book called Above Top Secret, and that's the perfect name because this subject matter, specifically the crash retrievals, the UFO phenomenon, but specifically UFO crash retrievals, this was classified higher than the atomic bomb during World War II. That's how highly classified this subject is. I mean, we're playing with the big boys here. This is the varsity team. There is not one issue bigger than this in the entire government of the United States. And they will stop at nothing to keep this under wraps. Nothing.
Right. I was joking. I said, I'm having Mike on the show. I said, these folks are about to bug my phone, put a tracker in my car. I think I'm going down a rabbit hole a little too deep. But
well, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? When did you become aware of this trash retrieval program?
Well, I've always had an interest in aviation my whole life. Aviation is my crusade my whole life, and started tracking down the classified military aspects of what's going on within the defense industry, the defense contractors, things that are built in Palmdale, California, things that go bump in the night, and then that led me into more of the historical UFO cases, which eventually led me to the Leonard Stringfield crash retrieval cases. And now I feel that's my crusade the last 4 years, is to keeping his legacy alive through the use of full color renderings, refined drawings based on his military witness testimony.
Right. I saw one of your shows where you had I think it was like a contest. You had you gave the specifics of the area, what they saw, and everybody drew I guess they did like an AI rendition of what they actually, of what you gave them. And a lot of that stuff was really good. It's like, wow. Yeah. Do you foresee, because a lot of the stuff that we have now, like I'm a firm believer in, they put the truth out little at a time, like through movies and through books, and they trying to get us like ready for something. I don't think they just sit around and just make this stuff up.
I agree with you. I think there is a long-term acclimation process going on here through the use of movies and everything. Now, there's no one who doesn't know about this subject, and it's not talked about, but if you're in a group of people and you mention this, there will always be someone that has a connection to this story. Like, I had a great uncle that used to work at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he told us years ago that he guarded the bodies that were in these glass tubes kept in formaldehyde chemicals to preserve the bodies. My uncle used to work there. There's always this story in the background. So it's always lurking. And what we want to do is take those people's testimony, put that into an overarching umbrella where we can start connecting the dots and look at the overall context. And then you can start filling in the pieces of this tapestry where now we don't have this fragmented puzzle. We can now start to see this picture come into view.
Right. That's interesting you said that, because you go look at the movie Independence Day, they had glass tubes kept in formaldehyde. Like,
that's right.
I don't think they're just sitting around thinking that stuff up. From 1947, that first crash in Roswell, do you see how fast we leaped as far as like technology and all the things we have fiber optics, all that stuff. Is it us or is it a mixture? Is it
Well,
stuff
what
from
we
them and us?
if you look at the historical record within the Leonard Stringfield cases and also Ryan Wood in his newly published book, Magic Eyes Only,
Mm,
in fact, we have crash retrievals prior to Roswell, dating back to 1941 and possibly earlier than that. So Roswell is actually a latecomer in all this game. We've
okay.
got crash retrievals prior to Roswell where they already were recovering debris and bodies. Now, you mentioned Roswell. If we believe Philip Corso's statement, Colonel Philip Corso, where he talked about at the Pentagon, he was in charge of a file cabinet that had documents, that had debris, that had hardware recovered from the Roswell craft in the form of transistor, we had the integrated circuit, we had laser, we had fiber optics. These things were farmed out into industry, private industry, and then they perfected the technology, commercialized it, made billions off of it, and then
Hmm.
that was integrated into weapons research programs. So, in a nutshell, if his account is true, which again, why would this guy lie? We don't know for sure, right? What proof do we have? But when you look at
Right.
the overall picture, where these other military witnesses are confirming some of the things that Colonel Corso was saying, now we can kind of see this coming into view. Yes. Mhm.
Right, right. That leap in technology, I just think is amazing. Going from getting up, turning the TV to sitting back and that laser hitting it, and you know, we
Mhm.
streaming movies now. All these things, not to take away from our greatness as a people, but I just think it's some reverse engineering going on somewhere. That, like you said,
Sure.
sold off to private industry, Mac, Apple, all those different places like that. And then they give it to us, the consumer.
Yep.
Um,
That's right.
if you want to dive a little bit deeper into this trash retrieval program, the
Yeah.
floor is
So,
yours.
are we cool to share screen here? Can we do that?
Yes, yes, we
Yep.
can.
All right. Let's try that. I'm going to present. Okay. Share screen. Share screen. And let's go to here. Okay. So are you seeing this?
Yes,
You do see this? Okay. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to slideshow from beginning. Do you see that full screen?
yes,
You do. Okay. And
yeah,
if I forward one, it goes on your end too?
yes. I just have to add it to the
Good.
stage. Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So I think we're all set here. And let's go ahead and begin this process here. Uh, And what the name of this presentation is Retrievals of the Third Kind, Cosmic Crashes, Corpses, and Cover-Ups. And we'll go for an hour here or
Okay.
however long we want to go. And what this is kind of an homage to Leonard Stringfield. And I want to go through these cases. They're all in alphabetical order, well, essentially by date. I'm going to give you the locations, the dates, the page number so that you can verify this. I'm going to give you the reference works so that you can check out these cases. We want to take a look at these cases from the first-hand military sources. There's a lot to cover here, so I want to go ahead and begin with this
Okay.
slide. UFO crash retrievals, the ultimate holy grail of UFO research. And I kind of always like to start here. Why do I call it the ultimate holy grail of UFO research? And it's very simple because it's the crash retrievals that have the bodies, the debris, and the craft all
Mm,
wrapped up into one entity. And this is going to be the vehicle that facilitates disclosure
okay.
because it's got everything it needs. I mean, what we're lacking here is hardware. They always
Hmm.
talk about, well, we don't have any evidence of any of this. Well, the crash retrievals sure do. They
Right.
have the hardware, they have the bodies, they have the debris, they have everything we need. All we need to do is get access to this material. So that's why it's the crash retrievals that are the holy grail. And like I kind of said before, anything less than this, and we're going to be spinning our wheels and we're going to be here another 80 years and not
Hmm.
know. So it's so important that we track these witnesses down. Rip through a couple of announcements. The content of each case highlighted in this presentation has remained intact for the description of the original source. Number two, the identity of first-hand sources will be protected per Leonard Stringfield's original agreement with his military contacts. The visual aids used in this presentation are computer-generated forensic composite illustrations and sketches which originated from the specific details provided by Leonard's sources. So this is the source material where Leonard got his information. So we've got
Okay.
3-star U.S. Air Force generals, U.S. Air Force fighter pilots, astronauts, commercial pilots, air traffic controllers, neurosurgeons, pathologists, theoretical
Mm.
physicists, and mathematicians, U.S. Army officers, U.S. Navy officers. We have military police, high level Pentagon officials, top military brass, scientists and engineers who worked at Wright Patterson Air Force Base and other government facilities. So, this is a cross section of the caliber of firsthand military witnesses that Leonard dealt with and compiled these personnel. Let's go to the next slide here. A couple of quotes before we get into the material.
Okay.
Number one, UFO crash retrievals can't be real because if they were, I would have read about it in the local newspaper. That's the general public. Number two, there are not now nor ever have been any extraterrestrial visitors or equipment on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is official U.S. Air Force press release. So what we're going to do in this slide presentation, it's going to be our military firsthand witnesses that dealt with the bodies and the debris up against the United States Air Force that claims that there's nothing to UFOs, there's no threat to national security, and what people are actually seeing is a misidentification of weather balloons. Okay, so that's the challenge that we're going to go up against here. This is the man of the hour that we're talking about here. This is UFO crash retrieval expert Leonard Stringfield. He's long since forgotten now. He's completely almost unknown. He deserves so much more credit than he deserved. Kind of a hero in this field. And over this 30-year time period, he collected dozens of these firsthand military sources that dealt with these crash retrieval operations. A couple of bio points here. He was born in 1920, grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. By the time he graduated from high school in 1939, he already memorized the entire dictionary. He joined the military as he heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941.
1941, yeah.
After the war, he was employed by a chemical company in Ohio and retired after 30 years. He wrote 2 books, Inside Saucer Post 3-0, 1957, Situation Red, the UFO Siege back in 1977. So those are the 2 books that he wrote. Now, this next bullet item is the one that we want to drill down on here. It says, his lecture on UFO crash retrievals at the 1978 MUFON Symposium in Dayton, Ohio, caused an international sensation. It did. And the reason why is because, number one, this was a new thing back then. In 1978, crash retrievals really weren't known, and Roswell was just beginning to be put on the radar screen. So that's kind of one reason why this was unique. The other thing is, when he gave this lecture at the MUFON Symposium in 1978, where he highlighted 12 of his firsthand military witnesses, the agreement that he made with his witnesses is that it was okay for Leonard to relate their story, preserving our history, but he could not release their names. Wow. So the names had to be kept under wraps. And that was the point of contention and pushback at the symposium, because no one could do an independent verification of Leonard's sources. And so you can see that's why there was this pushback. He passed away December 18th, 1994. Really quick newspaper clipping here. Cincinnati Enquirer, July 19th, 1993. Author continues quest for truth about UFOs. What I've collected has staggering implications for mankind. This would be the biggest thing since Christ, really. Yeah, it would be. If we can prove even one of these cases, and I've got 119 crash retrieval cases within the Stringfield collection, if we can conclusively prove one of them, then it's over. Game over. We got it. We got him. Leonard maintained a collection of 22 bank boxes of original correspondence, letters, drawings, audio tapes, and testimony from his sources. These witnesses should be located and their testimony should be presented before Congress. Yeah. So what I'm saying here is that legitimately it is the final curtain call on UFO crash retrieval. This is it. We're in 2024. Right. A lot of these witnesses go back to the late 1940s, early 1950s.
Yeah.
We're long since beyond racing the Undertaker here. This is the final curtain call. If we don't do this now, it's not going to get done.
It's not going to get done.
So
Right.
we got to step up to the plate. This has got to get done now. This is a priority one, all hands on deck operation here. We need everybody on board on this one. Okay, so let's continue. Now, everything we're going to be talking about tonight comes from this book, UFO Crash Retrievals, The Complete Investigation Status Reports 1 through 7 by Leonard Stringfield, 1978 to 1994. When you look through this book, what you're going to notice is that it's very text rich. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of detail. It's big on text. However, it is not big on visual aids. There's literally no drawings, no illustrations, no photographs, no sketches, no 3D full color renderings. And, I'm thinking, it would be great if someone went through this book with a fine-tooth comb, picked out the mission-critical cases, commit those to refined drawings, use that as a template, and then create full-color, accurate 3D renderings based on that drawing. Yeah. So what I've done over the last 4 years is I've made that my crusade to make these cases come alive through the use of illustrations here. Okay, also want to highlight Magic Eyes Only by my good friend Ryan Wood. This has another 104 cases. So when you link up Leonard Stringfield's 119 cases and then you link up Magic Eyes Only 104 additional cases, now we really got a super tight full power application here. Now, I want to take you to Las Vegas here for a few minutes.
Okay.
If we went to Las Vegas and we went to a roulette wheel with 120 spaces and we bet 119 spaces, we're going to win every time. We can almost not lose. And what I'm saying here is all we need is for one of these accounts to be true, and the case for non-existence of UFO crash retrieval completely falls apart. So, we can't lose. We virtually can't lose. The odds are in our favor because it's 119 to 1 in our favor. And we are going to run these things to ground. We eventually will win this race because the human spirit will prevail. This is something that all mankind deserves this. This is not a secret American thing. This is beyond that. It's a bigger picture. This goes beyond borders. It's a transnational organization. And so technically, we all have a need to know, despite the fact that they think there's a sinister, horrible truth to all this. We still need the truth, regardless of what they say here. Okay, next one. Pencil drawings by Rudy Gardet. I want to give him credit. So why don't we go ahead and dive in here? So this is UFO crash retrieval 1942 at a location north of Georgia that even Leonard didn't even know it. Now, when this thing came down, it ripped a hole in the side of the craft because it hit the side of the building. So there's a whole breach on the side of the craft. This is page 319 of the book for anyone who wants to follow along. Approximately 15 feet in diameter. It was 10 feet high. It had 3 levels on it. So upper level had a display panel with buttons and switches. That was kind of the upper level. Now, the mid deck, which Rudy's drawn a blow up here in the bubble right-hand corner, was what looked like 4 bar stools parked behind a wraparound window. That was level number 2. Level number 3 had an entryway hatch. Now, I want to mention that there were 4 crew members taken alive. They were about 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, large black eyes, milky white skin. On the bottom outer circumference of the craft were these hieroglyphic type writings written around the lower surface of the craft itself. I'm going to go to the next slide, a little bit of a blow up. So if you really think about what we're dealing with here, and I've got 3 other cases minimum of these hieroglyphic type writings on the inside wall of the craft, on the bottom of the craft, on the lower portion of the upper dome of these craft, multiple cases. So what that means is by default is that we most likely have a transnational team of engineers, linguistic experts who are trying to crack the code of these things. There has to be an organization like that going on here. All right. Next one.
Are you sliding? Are you sliding the sliders?
Are you seeing the slides move forward?
No, I'm just seeing the very first one.
You're not
retrievals of
seeing the
the.
slides move forward?
Okay, there we go. Now I see the bunker. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to go here then so that you can see everything.
I saw
So
the hieroglyphics. Okay, there we go.
so now it's moving forward.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
I'm
moving
I'm going to
forward. Yeah.
stay at this level so that you can see everything here.
Okay.
So this is Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio,
Yeah.
1946.
1946.
Tex Martin, he's a 6-year-old boy at the time, and this is when the location was known as Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. It had not become Wright-Patterson Air Force Base until October 1947. This is page 242, 243 in the book.
Okay.
So he's joining his father. There's kind of this adjoined cafeteria to the main hangar area, and this janitor comes to the 6-year-old boy, Tex Martin, and said, would you like a soda pop? And he said, yes. So he buys this 6-year-old boy a soda pop. And I'm going to move on to the next slide. And hopefully you can see this vending machine here.
Yep.
Okay.
Old school.
Yep. Old school vending machine. You got it. So he hands this little boy a soda pop. And the second he does that, there's a military personnel that walks through this door. At the very same time he gets this soda, I'm going to go to the next slide. And here you can see Rudy's rough drawing, laying all this out here. We're kind of laying out the scene in rough sketches here.
Yeah.
He's looking inside this hangar, and what does he see? He sees two 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy trucks with unknown tarp debris. He sees about an 18-foot diameter dish-shaped craft with tripod landing gear legs. He also sees 3 ET bodies on gurneys laying on the hangar floor, and he can't believe this. He's like in shock. He can't believe. He's only 6 years old. He's watching all this go down in real time here. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take you to the next slide, reverse the angle, and if you look at the back, you can see him peeking through that door here.
Right.
And you can see the dish-shaped craft. We've got the 18-wheelers laid out here. We've got the tarp debris. We've got the bodies on the floor. So we're roughing out the details. I want to take you to the next drawing, and this is the refined drawing now, where this kind of comes into view. So this was 20 feet in diameter. The craft was off-white in color. It was definitely propped up on tripod landing gear legs. It had 2 rings wrapped around the outer circumference. There were 3 bodies laying on the floor. And then we've got the tractor trailers with the unknown tarp debris. So what we wanted to do here is we wanted to take the 2-page report from Leonard's book. We link this up with the final rendering, and we go to the full color rendering, and this is what we came up with.
Wow.
So something like this was seen at Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, back in 1946. Now, I want to go to the next slide, and I'm going to divert from Stringfield just once because it ties into this whole story here. Mm-hmm. This is Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946. Our source was a private in records management, so he worked in records management. And this is Space, the Final Frontier, page 59 by Clark McClellan. I want to give you the front cover of what the book looks like. So this is Clark McClellan. And inside this book is a sketch from the primary eyewitness. And this is what he said he saw. So he was delivering this letter to a high-level military brass. He had a friend who was an MP security guard there. And when he met his friend who was a guard, his friend said, you know what? I got something I want to show you. So he brought him inside the hangar and showed him this craft, 15 feet in diameter, 7 feet tall. It had a series of rectangle windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself. It had no visible means of propulsion. There were no seams. There were no rivets, no socket head cap screws. There were no welds. There were no hex head cap screws. It had come into Wright Field by way of a railroad car from Arkansas. That's how it got there. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. And this is the drawing, AutoCAD drawing I came up with based on the original eyewitness sketch. Now, what I've done on the upper right-hand corner you see here is I've cut away the skin, showing you this internal central column that was about 3 feet in diameter that came from the bottom of the craft, went up through the midpoint, and then terminated to the top section at the very top of the craft itself. Now, if you look at one window left of center, you're going to see a red dot. That is the attempted point of entry with diamond tip drill bits. So they had these lab coat technicians that were trying to desperately get into this thing with diamond tip drill bits. Let's go to the next slide here. This shows you my first pass color illustration, kind of a kindergarten render, just to give you an idea what this thing may have looked like. Let's go to Joseph Race, much more professional illustration. I want to give him credit. And you can see again this little red dot on the window left of center. That's where they were trying to get into this craft. He's also peeled away that skin, showing you the interior central column. So let's take the report that we got from the original eyewitness, and we'll link that up with everything we got from the original sketch. And we came up with this drawing here that shows you what this may have looked like back in 1946. Now, according to the report, there was a tarp that was partially folded up off to the right. In the foreground, there was an open toolbox with an electric drill with a diamond tip drill bit. So this is what this guy showed his friend here. So it's very interesting. So if we take this drawing as a guide, we use what we already got from the original report. Let's go to the full color rendering. And this is what we came up with the full color rendering. So something like this perhaps was seen at Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, back in 1946. So now we want to ask the question, who would have a need to know about this? I want to bring your attention to this document here. This is a letter from Nathan Twining, who is the base commander of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which used to be Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. The timeline checks out, to Brigadier General George Shulgin. This is September 23rd, 1947. He says, quote, "The phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious." Later in this document, he describes the flight path that these things are doing. He describes the configuration. He describes the performance that these things can accomplish. Very good bombshell documentation, actually. Next one, Papagos Indian Reservation west of Globe, Arizona. This is January 1947. This is north of Superstition Mountains. And the primary source was in the Navy during World War II, page 93, case A10 in the book. So if anyone wants to follow along in Leonard's book, this is the page number where you can follow along. So you've got two personnel, our primary eyewitness and another, driving down this unimproved road west of Globe, Arizona. And they're just driving down this road, and all of a sudden they're met with two MPs, basically held at gunpoint with rifles, challenged, told not to go any further. Let's go to the drawing here. But it was already too late. What they saw, they were at the right place at the right time at the beginning of a retrieval operation. Off to the left, another 100 feet down the road off to the left, was a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had kind of come at a 45-degree angle. It had a low-rise dome on top. There was a series of indented windows wrapped around the outer circumference with two rings wrapped around the outer circumference. And they're challenged and told to get out of here, vacate the area immediately. That's their order. But they already saw this whole thing going down. They were at their right place at the right time. So let's take this drawing as a guide, and we'll go to the full color rendering. This is what we came up with back in 1947 per our original military firsthand witness report. So not only do I like to track down the debris and the craft and the bodies, but I like to find out where the debris ended up. Where did the bodies go? This is kind of like a secondary crusade here. So I've got one report within the Stringfield collection that talks about something called Foote Brothers Gear and Machine Company. So one document talks about this. According to Mr. Robert Helmold of Foote Brothers Gear and Machine Company of Chicago, conducted metallurgical analysis on pieces from a saucer that crashed back in 1947 in Arizona, which could be the case we just talked about here. So what did these guys do here? Well, Chicago Tribune, January 15th, 1955, The Road to Success, Foote Brothers Gear. And here they say, it makes gears as large as 21-foot diameter and weighing 45,000 pounds and others small enough to put on a watch chain. Its gears are found on airplanes of all types, including jets and helicopters. In a year, it will make thousands of different gears for use by industry. So if you were a defense contractor or you were a government and something foreign came down and your team didn't know exactly what they were dealing with here, and this looked like it might have been coming from a gear, they weren't quite sure, but it had some teeth on it, you'd want to take it to a company that has been doing this for decades, that's a pro at this, who makes
Right.
all these different types of gears, upwards of 45,000 pounds, all the way down to something you wear on your wrist. This is the company you would want to go to take it to.
Right.
Absolutely. So here is Hendrix Commercial Register 1909, and you can see the size of the gears that these guys work on here. Here's another one, the Purchasing Agent, May
Hmm.
1923. So yes, if the government retrieves something and it even had the slightest resemblance of some type of teeth on a gear, and we needed to reverse engineer the technology, you'd want to take it to Foot Brothers Gear and Machine Company. So this checks out absolutely. All right, next one. This is White Sands Missile Range, July 4th, 1947. The source was a technical sergeant, U.S. Army Air Force, page 196 in the book. And what happened on this one is a very large dish-shaped craft came down on the north range of White Sands Missile Range. This thing was massive. It was about 150 feet in diameter, all at night. The whole scene was excruciatingly well lit. So they had spotlight shining on this thing. They
Mm.
had light all shining on this thing. They had searchlights pointed at this thing. They had people with Geiger counters walking around this thing to make sure it wasn't hot. They had people taking motion picture movie camera footage of this. They had still photographers going on. So they had a print film made of this. Bottom line is, this was very well documented. I'm going to go to the next slide here. Here's a full color rendering of something that came down White Sands Missile Range, July 1947. So, what is the takeaway on this case specifically here? So, actionable item. Since still photography and motion picture film was recorded of this event, senators and congressmen with the appropriate security clearances should track down and utilize this evidence for future public hearings. Now, I want to mention a brick wall here. Do you have any idea what this brick wall might be? I want to take a guess.
The brick wall might be the
Yeah,
government.
what's the brick now? Knowing that we've got this craft and we've got all of the still camera images and motion picture film images, what's the brick wall we might be running into here?
Um, Secrecy, probably.
Secrecy. That's a good answer. Well, the problem we're running into here is that senators and congressmen, number one, they don't have a need to know regarding these crash retrievals, and they don't have a high enough security clearance to access the information, because they always talk about in these congressional hearings, we don't have any physical proof. We don't
Right.
have any evidence. Well, they're not going to get the evidence because they don't have a high enough security clearance. So that's this conundrum, this catch-22 that we're running into here. That's why it's so important for us to track down these military witnesses that were involved in this, that could get us to these congressional hearings. All right, let's go on to the next one here. UFO crash retrieval 1947, seen at a warehouse at Berkeley University. We've got the name of this guy, Albert Bruce Collins. He's no longer with us. He was a
Okay.
metallurgical engineer. And this is page 197 in the book. So he was at the right place at the right time when this 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy backed into, of all places, a warehouse at Berkeley University. I'm going to go on to the next slide here. And here you can see him. They've got the 18-wheeler tractor trailer backed in, and what he said he saw was a 30-foot long, egg-shaped craft, 15 feet tall. It looked like there was a hole breach on the side of the craft. The thing looks like a cracked egg, essentially. On
Right.
the forward section of the craft, there was a composite panel. Inside this craft was a yolk, like an egg yolk. This thing was about 3 feet in diameter. There was another composite panel that wrapped around the outer circumference of this egg yolk. And then he said, on the bottom right-hand side of the craft, which Rudy did the drawing here, you can see that there was a hull breach that looked like there was an internal implosion, and debris and shrapnel was coming out from the inside going out. So this thing may have suffered an implosion. So we wanted to take the 2-page report on this case. We're going to link that up with Rudy's drawing, and we came to this full color rendering at Berkeley University. Now, it could still be there today. We don't know. But according to
Right.
the first-hand military source, this thing was backed into Berkeley University warehouse. Let's go to the next one. Interesting case. Carrot Patch, south of Salinas, California. This is July, August 1947. Seen by two 19-year-old workers in a nearby field. And this is the dictation note. So what happened in this case is the night before this case came down, the boys didn't even know anything about this. It was the foreman that alerted them the next morning that some strange craft came down. I don't know what this thing is. You guys take a look at it. Here is the original sketch that came with the report. It was not a large craft, 9 feet in diameter, 4 feet tall, had a flat top. There was a double row of indented windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft itself, which we've already talked about before in other cases. Flat top. And then on this particular case, which I thought was interesting, the report came with a map. So X marks the spot. I can take you within 300 feet of where this came down. Now, since this happened so many years ago, there'd be nothing left now. But back then, when this all went down, I could literally get you within probably 200, 300 feet. We could be at the site seeing the military operation go down. Here was my first pass SolidWorks drawing based off of my model that I made of this thing in SolidWorks. This gives you just the rough overall dimension. So we've got 9 feet across in diameter, 4 feet tall. We've got the flat top. And we'll go to my first pass kindergarten illustration very early on in this game, just trying to give an idea what this thing might actually look like. Let's go to Rudy's drawing, which is much better. This gives you an idea of what actually this whole thing looked like. So about 5 minutes after these two boys see this craft, one of them gets up enough guts. He walks over it. He hits the thing with his boot. He made contact with this. Within a matter of minutes, there's a military convoy that pulls up. So there's a couple of Jeeps. There's a troop transport. There's a 6x6 covered section. There's a trailer off to the back. These two boys are ordered to get out of the area, but they did see the military team manhandle this thing, lift it up onto the trailer, cover it up with a tarp, and then get out of the area. They saw the whole operation. We've got their full 3-page report within the files here. So let's go to the full color rendering. And this is our best representation of what these two boys saw back in Salinas, California. So what I want to do now is I want to take you to this case here. This is by Danny Sheehan. He plays a major role in all of this here. And most people are familiar with him. He has degrees from Harvard University, Harvard Law School. He, as you know, is a large advocate for UFO disclosure and transparency. Go to the next slide here. In 1977, he was given a special security clearance to investigate classified files at the Library of Congress. And I want to take you kind of through the background of how he got to this information. So what these were, the files that he accessed were, in point of fact, these were the classified files specifically associated with Project Blue Book. These files are not to be confused with the unclassified Blue Book records, which have long since been declassified and sent to the National Archives in Washington, D.C. So, we're not talking about the declassified files. The photos were accessed by Danny Sheehan at the Madison Building basement during January of 1977 under the direction of the Congressional Science and Technology Committee and Marcia Smith at the Congressional Research Service. So I just want to give you the background of how he got this information. Again, we're not talking about the common, ordinary, garden variety, vanilla Blue Book files. We're talking about a separate collection of classified Blue Book files. That's what he accessed back in January 1977. So the big question is, where are the classified Project Blue Book files now?
Right.
So what he said he did is he went to the James Madison Memorial Building. That's where he accessed the files. Now, where is that building? Here's the top view, Washington, D.C., looking down. You can see the United States Capitol. Off to the right, we've got the Library of Congress. Just below that, we've got the Madison Building. So that gives you the site picture of what we're talking about here. So what he's told to do is go on an elevator, go on to the basement. So he goes to the elevator, he gets to the basement. So here's the basement layout of the Madison Building. He gets out of the elevator, walks down a long corridor, and is met with two military guards. They check his ID, and he walks into the facility now where they have a a microfilm reader, and they also have a cart, a mobile cart with documents on it, and then what look like shoe boxes with a little bit of a string attaching them together. So they're secured by a little bit of a string. And when you unravel that string, you can like pull out different microfilm reels. So he's looking through these microfilm reels, and you can kind of see here, here's a period correct microfilm reader. You string it through, then you go to the other reel, and then you can kind of zoom through this. And he's thinking, my timing here is very limited. I don't have a lot of time to look at these files. I certainly can't go through all these documents. This is probably going to be the only time I ever get access in here. I better make the best use of my time. So he brought out one of these microfilm reels, threaded it through the reader. He turned it down. It projected an image onto this white plate that you see here on this screen. Mm-hmm. And he's fast forwarding through this microfilm reel. And he said he came across 3 photographs of a crash retrieval operation. And he's looking at this. He can't believe it. What was shown was a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had a low-rise dome. On the bottom of that dome, wrapped around the outer circumference, were these strange hieroglyphic-type writings or embossments written around the outer circumference. He just can't believe this thing. That's tipped up at a 30-degree angle. It's about 30 feet in diameter. This was a winter scene. It left a debris trail. When this thing came to a rest, it built up a mound of dirt on the right-hand side. Now, there were 4 people in this scene. They were all wearing winter parkas. They had their hoods up. They had that furry flange that kind of encapsulates the top of the hood. Those were present. 3 men had still cameras. So we got those 3 guys. Now, there was one other guy off to the left. He was carrying a shoulder-mounted dual reel motion picture film camera. He was recording the whole scene. So that is the sight picture here. Now,
old school camera.
Old school camera. Yeah, we're talking about old school, those dual reel things that you see in the motion. Yeah, this is what this guy was using here. Now, next thing that was very interesting, what Danny did is he was smart. He brought in his notepad and he paged through all the pages to the very back where they have that cardboard backing. You know what I'm talking about? They had that cardboard backing on these notepads.
Yeah.
What he did is he laid down the cardboard backing on his notepad and he projected the image from the video projector directly onto his back of the notepad, and he proceeded to sketch per scale, 1-to-1, these exact inscriptions that are on the dome of this craft. And what you see here on the bottom is the note. This is the napkin drawing that Danny gave to me when I interviewed him. This is about 2 months ago now. I spent about an hour going back and forth with him and my good friend Rudy Gardea, just getting out the rough details here. And then we started this entire 3-week process refining the drawing. So let's go to the next one here. What did this look like? So I want to hit you with the entire process of how we refine the drawing here. So this was the original sketch by Danny. This is the napkin sketch. You can see the craft is tipped up at a 30-degree angle. It's got the dome. It's got the writing. Very rough, very preliminary. Up on the top section is Rudy's somewhat more refined drawing. We've got the people in place. And we'll just go through the process here. I'm not going to go through all this because we already talked about it, but the details were we had to have a 30-foot craft. Absolutely. We had to have it tipped up. Yeah. This thing had a dome on top. We talked about that. We had to have the symbols. It left a debris trail. We had to get the 4 men in the drawing. They all had to have those still cameras, and that 1/4 guy had to have the motion picture camera. I don't know, and Danny didn't know either because it wasn't dated. So I'm thinking, based on the period correct motion picture film camera, that this thing was taken between 1948 and 1961. That's the time frame where I believe that this photograph was actually taken. So let's continue on here. They were all wearing winter parkas with the furry flange on the hood. Let's go to the next slide. 3 of them had still cameras, period correct still cameras. One of them had this vintage dual reel motion picture film reel camera, but it didn't have a tripod. It was shoulder mounted. So you just eliminate the tripod and you've got our camera here. Again, these are the inscriptions that Danny drew on the napkin. And then I'm going to go to the next slide where one of my artists kind of cleaned things up a bit. So these are the guides that we want to follow for the inscriptions. So the refining process begins now. So here was the very first rough sketch, just getting out some of the details of what this thing actually looks like here, tipped up at a 30-degree angle. Let's go to the next one. Now we've got a little bit more refined. We've got some of the people in place. We've got our tip up angle. We've got the scale correct. We've got the hint of the hieroglyphic type writing written along the bottom of the upper dome. We've got the debris trail, and we've got the berm built up on the right-hand side. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, so this is like a direct side view now, looking head on at eye level at the craft itself, tipped up at a 30-degree angle, and some of these people in place. We're getting the idea here. Let's continue on. Okay, so this one, we're looking at the scene. This is kind of from behind. We've got the scale correct. We've got some of the people in there. Let's do another one where we've got the monument in place. We've got the built up debris. Now, there's a problem with this. When I hit with Danny, he said, you guys are close, but you're not right. You're not seeing this from the perspective of how I saw it on that photograph. And we were really discouraged because we got like 3 weeks into this thing and we still can't get this thing right. So it kind of dawned on me at this point that what he's trying to say is that the entire scene, the entire orientation needed to be rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then we'll be at the correct perspective. So then we came to this drawing. And when I showed this to Danny, he said, yes, this is correct. What we want to do is take the craft from the 45-degree angle, tip it down, another couple of degrees down. We want to be 15 degrees down. That gives us the 30-degree tip-up angle, and now we will be correct. So this was kind of the template that we used to go to the refined drawing, and then I'm going to take you to the next slide, and this is the final drawing that we came up with. And Danny said that you probably won't see anything closer to this until you see the actual photograph. So we believe this is the most accurate representation. So what I wanted to do next is I wanted to take this to the next level. I wanted to see a full color 3D photorealistic rendering. And so what I did is I put out a contest, a $100 contest all around the world for the first person to do the most accurate full color rendering based on Rudy's drawing, which has been vetted and properly looked at by Danny. I'm not going to go through all this again, but these are the parameters of what we had to do to win the contest here. And I want to state that there is a theoretical limit to what results you can achieve by typing prompts into an AI image generator. Bottom line is you still need the human touch. The technology is not there yet. If you've dealt with anyone who deals with AI generation and ChatGPT and all this, it's just not there. You can type all day long until the cows come home and you're still not going to get what you want. It is not intuitive enough to decipher what we actually need to be correct, because the computer just doesn't know. What it's doing is it's pulling from the data source pre-existing on the internet. It's using that as a guideline. So if you have something in error from the get-go, you're just going to get an error at the bottom line here. So it still requires this human touch. What you end up having to do is a hybrid. So you use AI to do the background, and then you have to model the craft up by scratch using 3D Studio Max, Unreal, or some other program. And then you finish up with Photoshop, bringing in elements and equipment and personnel and material. That's how you get this hybrid illustration. That's the only way you can get it correct. So let me go through some of these entries here that I thought were like the top 3 here. So this is Sean Lenahan. He did a reputable job here. So we've got the craft in place. He's got the writing in there, did a really good job on the inscriptions. We've got the tip up angle. We've got the 4 people in place, all in winter parkas. Good job. So that's a good one. Let's go to the next one. Ben Lewis did a pretty good job. Winter parkas are okay. We've got the motion picture film reel, dish-shaped craft. He's got the winter scene. It's a noble attempt. This I thought was the most accurate. So this guy won the prize. This is Skylar Stallings. He did a great job. So we've got the people in place. We've got the winter parkas. Tip up angle is correct. Craft is correct. Dome looks right. He's got the writing. So this was the winner. But I also wanted to go with this one too. This was a very good one too. So these are almost tied. This is
Oh
by
yeah.
Dan, and he
Wow.
did a great job too. So just giving you an illustration, and bottom line is, to the best of my ability, this is about as close as we're going to get to seeing the actual craft besides seeing the actual photograph. This is the closest we're going to get. Okay, so
Right.
$64 million question. Where are the top secret files on UFO crash retrievals being stored? This is a reference within the Stringfield collection. They are kept in 3 large computer banks spread throughout the country. And so these are the 3: Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. That's not a surprise. We knew that from the get-go. CIA headquarters, McLean, Virginia. They are definitely involved in keeping this under wraps. So you've got these 2. And then you've got NSA headquarters, Fort Meade, Maryland. So when you put these 3 together, now you can kind of see where they're keeping the files for all of this. Okay,
I
now.
was stationed at Fort Meade. Very,
there you
very
go.
yeah, very tight base. I will say that. Tight
Wow.
base.
Okay. So a good location for something like this.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Now,
Very, very strict. I was a very
very
strict
strict.
base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right to me. This gentleman in the report from Stringfield said, quote, "They will bend in any direction to keep them secret." And that's what we've seen over the last 8 decades, right? They have actually bent in any direction because they've used the giggle factor. They've used lying, denying, and deceiving. They pay off the media. We have a censored media. And so that's what you can, they're controlling the narrative here. Okay, next one. Location of where ET craft are being stored. This is also within the Stringfield collection. No surprise, CIA headquartered McLean, Virginia. It was at least 1 ET craft being stored there. MacDill Air Force Base, Tampa, Florida. At least at one time there was a huge classified library there that had motion picture film reels and had 8x10 black and white glossy photographs. Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, Goldsboro, North Carolina, is another location where ET craft are allegedly being stored here. Okay, let's go on to the next case. C-119 flying boxcar, Sierra Madre Valley, Mexico, prior to 1951. I believe the time frame is 1948.
Okay.
The source was an engineer. He worked in highway construction. And this is UFO crash retrievals, page 32 in the book. So if anyone wants to follow along, it was in the book. There were at least 2 bodies were recovered. This thing was 9 feet in diameter. Now, how do I know for a fact that this thing was only 9 feet in diameter? It's simple. All you got to do is take a tape measure and measure the interior wall of the inside of the C-119 cargo bay, and it's 9 feet 10 inches across. So by default, it's a mathematical certainty that this thing can't be any bigger than 9 feet across, because you need 5 inches of clearance on either side, and that gets you your 9 feet. So let's go to Rudy's drawing that shows you the military personnel kind of hoisting this thing up on a ramp into the back of the C-119. And we'll go to the full color rendering by Joseph Wraith. Want to give him credit. You can kind of see the whole scene coming into place here. You've got the bodies in the foreground that were charred and burned. They were very small to fit into this craft. Over to the right, you've got the clamshell bay doors opened up. They're loading the craft into the back of the clamshell doors on the C-119. I'm going to blow up the craft. So now you can see that a little bit better. And this is all from this construction engineer. And then I want to take you to the full color rendering of the bodies. Now, this construction engineer said that when he walked up and knelt down by these bodies, he actually touched the face with his hand. And when he pulled his hand away, the skin of the bodies was stuck on his fingers. So they were charred, they were burned. It wasn't for the faint of heart. It was a gruesome sight, but this is in the Stringfield collection. We've got the page number. We've got the witness that talked about this. Okay, next one. Naval Air Station, Sunnyvale, California, Hangar 1, radar operator, case B5, page 57 in the book. Now, if you look at this hangar, which still exists today. I've actually been in this hangar. This hangar used to be, during World War II, used for blimp storage. This thing is massive. It has its own weather inside. It's that big. It has its own weather. So you can put so much into this thing. So this radar operator, he kind of goes through these double doors, kind of by accident. And what he sees when he gets in is this large basically 100-foot diameter dish-shaped craft parked on the hangar floor, just sitting there. Has a dome on top. There's a series of porthole windows wrapped around its outer circumference. He's challenged by a guard and told to get out of here immediately. Wow. However, he later told his mother, quote, "It was certainly no aircraft of ours." This is the statement he made. So we wanted to take his report, match that up with Rudy's drawing. We went to the full color rendering. Something like this was seen by this radar operator in Hangar 1. So we've got his testimony as part of the whole United Coalition here. Okay, hundreds at Farmington report large force of flying saucers. This is Albuquerque Journal, March 18th, 1950. Why is any of this important? Because people who are involved in this field have heard of this. It's called the Farmington Armada. What was seen over Farmington is nothing short of extraordinary. There were 500 dish-shaped craft, yes, 500, flying over the town. There were multiple people that saw this. They had multiple newspaper clippings. The quote-unquote leader of these craft was red in color. They were making the most unusual flight path characteristics. They could make these 90-degree left-hand turns, no problem at all. They could fly backwards. This is all back in 1950. Wow. That's important because in the early 1950s, there was a call that went out by the Air Force to our pilots. This is Cincinnati Enquirer, July 29th, 1952. Shoot saucers down. Jet pilots so ordered in 24-hour alert. Let me go to the next one here. Jets keeping 24-hour alert for saucers. Pilots ordered to down objects if they don't land. On the saucer trail, pilots told shoot them down. Jets on 24-hour alert to shoot down saucers. So bottom line is, in the early 1950s, there was this shoot down order that was commanded to our Air Force pilots. And what type of aircraft were they using? They were using the F-94 Starfire. And if you want to take a good look at this thing, two places you can go. One of them is at Pima Air and Space Museum, Tucson, Arizona. Yeah. But it has the rocket flaps in the closed position. Over to the right, in the Midwest in Dayton, Ohio, at the Air Force Museum, they have this F-94 with the rocket flaps in the retracted position. So you can actually see the launch tubes. So what does one of these attempted intercepts look like? So I asked Rudy, let's do a drawing of that. And we came up with this. Something like this was going on in the early 1950s. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, that takes us to this letter written to Leonard Stringfield by a woman named Mildred Bissell, October 2nd, 1979. I'm going to rip through this here. It says, I heard you speak at the MUFON Symposium in Dayton last year, and I'm interested in your research on retrievals of the third kind. I gave a talk at a local library last week, and in the discussion period following, a fellow told me that when he was a gunner in the Air Force, he had emptied his guns on a UFO and had taken pictures with his gun camera that clearly showed the shells exploding against the side of the craft. He said the camera was taken off the wing of his plane when it landed, and the pictures developed. At 2 a.m., a couple of military policemen came and got him out of bed and took him to the base auditorium. They ran the 17 seconds of movie of the UFO over and over and questioned him and two other crew members until 10 a.m. He was warned never to tell anyone what had happened. He said he had a wife and a family, a good job, and a lot to lose. He seemed afraid of the CIA and wouldn't even give me his name. So here we've got this pilot, and he emptied an entire magazines of shells on this thing. It hit the side of the craft. They got this all on motion picture gun camera footage, and it was classified. He was told never to talk about it again. So what we're saying here is this is just one example, and they've got warehouses full of this gun camera footage of motion picture film reel. They've got warehouses full of 8 by 10 black and white glossy photographs of these craft and man-made craft as well. This is absolutely going on. This is just one small example of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, classified materials library. This is another case at an unknown U.S. Air Force base. This is page 212, 213 in the book. This is a former military officer. He had the right security clearance that gave him access to this classified materials library. And he opened up one of these file drawers. He opened up and pulled out one of these manila folders, looked inside, and what did he see? This is Rudy's drawing. He saw a black and white 8 by 10 glossy photograph of something that came down in Farmington, New Mexico prior to 1950. This is a 36-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had a low-rise dome on top. There was a series of porthole windows wrapped around its outer circumference, and it had a pencil-sized puncture in one of the portholes. Within this report, I'm just going to go over the bullet items here. So this is a military officer who had the correct security clearance that gave him access to this classified materials library. Reports seen by witness made reference to crashes and that bodies were recovered. Number 3, in addition, diamond-tipped drill bits and acetylene torches were used to gain access to the interior of the craft. Number 4, eventually technicians were able to gain access to the interior of the craft by way of a small entry hatch. The report said, referring to the door, that it was almost as if the material of the craft liquefied and then solidified again. So what we're talking about here is that the seams of these craft, according to the first-hand military sources, are so fully integrated into the exterior of the skin as to make them invisible. You can't even put a razor blade in the seams of this craft. That's how fully integrated these things are, almost like liquid metal here. We're talking about Terminator 2 things going on here.
Right.
Something very unusual, which was reported by this engineer here. So I think we've got time for one more here. The Pentagon, 1952, off-limits room. Pentagon office worker, page 152, case A1. So this office worker goes down into the basement of the Pentagon, and she goes through these off-limit double doors. I don't think she knew exactly where she was going. This is by accident. So now she's in this dark, dusty, dingy room. It's not lit very well. It's kind of dark out. Inside this room, there's some old, dusty boxes off to the right. She makes this 90-degree turn, and when she turns, what does she see? She sees a pickled alien in a glass jar.
Wow.
And she's absolutely shocked at what she's seeing. She can't believe it. You know, she's not down here for this. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she saw this thing. She couldn't believe it. Within 10 seconds, she feels this arm on her shoulder. It's an MP telling her to get out of here immediately. Get out of here right now. But we've got her testimony on file. Something like this was seen at the underground vault at the Pentagon. Now, how do we know there's a basement at the Pentagon? How do we know that there's anything there? Do we have any proof? Well, it turns out that former Vice President Dick Cheney got lost down there, believe it or not. Peninsula Times Tribune, March 25th, 1980. Dick Cheney, of all people, new defense chief gets lost in the Pentagon basement. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's proof right here. There is an underground basement at the Pentagon. There absolutely is. So what I've tried to do in this presentation is just gives you a brief overview of some of the mission critical cases within the Leonard Stringfield collection. The goal in all of this is to preserve an important part of our national history through the uses of refined drawings, full color renderings, based on the full firsthand military sources. And we really want to make these cases come alive. And I want to thank you for giving me your attention here.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a wealth of information. One scary part, when you showed that hieroglyphics, it looked so similar to the watch that they had in Predator when Arnold Schwarzenegger, when the alien hit the little thing and it started counting down, looked just like that. Before I let you go, sir, what can we do as tax-paying citizens to catapult disclosure?
That's a very good question, right? And people a lot more powerful than me have gone into this, and they haven't gotten to this end game as well. You could say to disclosure as well. The best thing that we can do that I can think of is that we need people with the heart of a volunteer because there's no one stronger than the heart of a volunteer. This cannot be a money issue. If you're in this for the money, you won't make it. This has to be a heartfelt crusade. That's the number one thing. The second thing we need is we need to track down these firsthand military witnesses that Leonard had talked about. Now, we
Right.
do have some of the names that have been published already. A lot of these people are gone already. There's a ragtag of group left now, probably a couple of dozen left. We need to track those people down because they can lead us to the congressional hearings, which can lead us to the hardware in the bodies. That is our last chance. This is literally the final curtain call. If we wait for the government to come and tell us, we'll be waiting here another 1,000 years. There's not going to be a government announcement because it's not in their best interest to let this information out. Because if they did, number one, there'd be lawsuits for the next million years. That's number one. Number two is what it would do is it would doom the utilities because the propulsion systems associated with these vehicles will absolutely make the utilities obsolete overnight. Okay, so number one, you got the coal fire plants. They're out of business. We got the internal combustion engines. The auto industry is out overnight. We've got the nuclear power plants. We've got the wind farm generating farms. We've got the solar farms. We've got all these utilities, multi-trillion-dollar industries being obsolete overnight. And so that's really the second reason for the cover-up.
Yes, sir. The fracking will stop
Yep.
overnight.
So, yep. We need to track down these remaining witnesses. That's the best job we can do. And then have them get to the hardware, the material, and the bodies. And then those people need to come together as a united coalition, one united voice, no lone wolves. We need 24 people coming together in congressional hearings with physical evidence, and then we're going to get somewhere. Other than that, anything less than that, we will be here another 100 years.
Yes, sir. Before I let you go, tell me everything you got going on, books,
Okay,
your show,
so
your
what I'm
podcast.
doing is this is absolutely a crusade. I will go down with the ship if I have to get this information out because it belongs to all of us. This is not an American story. This is a multinational story. This is a humankind story. So it's bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us. That's the first thing. If you want to find me, I'm on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel called Michael Schratt. I have a book called Dark Files, a pictorial history of lost, forgotten, and obscure UFO encounters. It's called Dark Files. It's on Amazon. And if you just type in Dark Files in my name, it'll pop right up.
Gotcha. And I'm going to put a link in the description for your book as well as your YouTube channel. Sir, I thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing this information. You're welcome back anytime.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a great weekend.
Okay. We'll see you.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
Michael Schratt on the check-in with a lot of information. Let me just say this, get this off my chest one time. I have over 800 subscribers. 4 people tuned in to watch. I thank you guys. Hit the like button, share and subscribe to the channel. This channel is for the educated. This is not for gossip. If you go look through my catalog, mostly everything I do is try to enlighten and educate people and bring things that, we talk about murder, we talk about children missing, we talk about the educational system, we talk about UFOs. I've had pastors on the show, comedians on the show. We got to bring the engagement up. If I was talking about gossip, these corny shows that y'all like watching, it's okay to take a break from nonsense and come feed your mind, come feed your soul, come get some information, grow. I don't understand it. Like, it's okay to get away from nonsense and come get some truth. You understand? With that being said, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I want to thank everybody for watching the No Anonymity podcast. So we're going to keep bringing you truth. We're not going to keep giving you, well, every now and then I'm going to do a little BS episode with some garbage, because you people love garbage for some reason. I don't know why. It does nothing for me, even the garbage shows you watch. But tonight's show was brought to you by the Lion of Judah. Fellas, go get this. Smells amazing. Lion of Judah. Go and get that. Smells amazing. Again, I want to thank everybody, Michael Schratt, for coming in. I'm going to have all the links and everything to his show and his book. Order his book, A Wealth of Knowledge, A Wealth of Information. I'm glad he came through and blessed the podcast. And again, till then, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the Cash App, man, so we can keep this channel going. All right? Peace.
No anonymity, no anonymity. Podcast. No anonymity, no anonymity. Podcast. No anonymity, no anonymity. Podcast. No anonymity, no anonymity. I'm here to talk the truth and try to spread a little change. Educate your mind, food for your brain. We all want change. In these dying days, the streets at rage, for the youth must pray. I ain't got time for y'all to tell me nothing. Cats be frontin', that's when you know they know nothing. It's a new world order, so fall in line. Sometime if you listen, it can open your eyes. This your brain on drugs. Let's explain what was, how some get targeted, dragged through the mud. It's all conversation, we just talking the facts. And to those with opinions can reply to that, and I reply you back, but that's besides the fact. It's like time for the show, let's get your mind intact. We can all conversate and lay out facts. It's the No Anonymity Podcast. Let's go.